Okay, selections. So many options. Well, okay, maybe not a whole lot, only 8. But in this video, we're going to cover the 3 lasso selections, which give you somewhat broad, but also precise selections. Alright, and it's easier just to show you them rather than try to explain them. So let's jump into Photoshop. And we're going to start with the Lasso Tool. Okay, so I'm just going to make just a general, you drag, and you don't even have to connect the 2 points. I started here, ended here, and it connected it for me.
Okay, so on the screen, you're going to see that I've made a selection, and I didn't quite like the selection. So I made another selection, and that's still not up to my standards. So Jade's head is cut off. So what I'm doing up at the top is selecting the second box to the right, which allows me to make multiple selections at once. So if I make a selection, make another selection, Photoshop will keep both selections active instead of getting rid of one and going with the second one. I always keep that option chosen because of situations like this. But then also there's the little loop-de-loo up top that I don't want. Instead of clicking the box like you see me doing in the recording, what you can do is hold down Option on a Mac or Alt on a PC, and then you will get a minus sign next to the lasso, and that means you're going to subtract from your selection. That is the better way or best way to go with these tools rather than using those boxes up top, because Photoshop will keep the last selection that you had, or not selection, sorry, I'm going to confuse you. It will keep the last option that you had of those boxes active. So the next time you go in to do a selection and you think, okay, I want to do more than one selection, thinking that you're on the multiple selection option, you might be on the subtraction option, and then you get frustrated and it just causes havoc. So I always have the multiple selection option chosen, and then that allows me to make multiple selections or fix my selection if I need to, and then I just use the Alt or Option key to subtract from my selection rather than messing around with those boxes up top.
Okay, so let's take a look at the Polygonal Tool. I always have to think about that word. I always say polyagonal. It's the Polygonal Tool. Over here underneath the Lasso Tool, you click and hold and then select. And this tool allows you to create shapes in your selection. So if I wanted a star or a triangle or a rhombus or parallelogram or whatever I wanted to do, I could. So I'm going to, just for simplicity purposes, create a triangle. So I clicked once. I'm going to move my mouse to the next point that I want. I'm going to click again, and then I'm going to move to the next point and click once, and then move to the next point. Now when I move to my original area, you will see a little circle appears, and that means I'm going to complete my shape and complete the selection area. Okay, so this isn't the best selection because, as you can see, it's going right through his face. So because I don't have a whole lot of wiggle room on what I want to do, even if I want to continue to do a triangle, to start over and to redo my selection is not really feasible. I'm going to transform my selection because this is not a very good, obviously I'm going through his face. Let's say I absolutely wanted a triangle for whatever I was trying to do, for whatever creative thing that I was trying to do. I want a triangle. But I can't really do a triangle in the traditional sense because it's not selecting his whole face, but I do want a triangle. I'm going to go up here and do transform selection. And you can see I've got my blue box, and I can either shrink uniformly, I can shrink the triangle, but I want his face and some of his body. So I'm going to rotate my selection so that the triangle is going the other way. Now I have his whole face and some of his body, but now I want his face and just the cup. So I'm going to shrink the selection and come back up. And it probably makes more sense to go from the bottom. Let's do that instead. There we go. So that's my selection. I have the cup and his face and my triangle. I'm going to hit enter or click on this checkbox up here to finalize my selection. And just to show you what I'm going to end up, I'm going to take my move tool. And that's the area that I have selected and to work with. And if I wanted to, because I have this selected, I could just automatically make a mask. I'm going to click down here, and now I have him and his cup and my triangle, and the background is gone. So that's a layer mask, and again, if you would like to know more about layer masks, I discussed that in another video. Okay, so we're going to take the layer mask out. We're going to delete that layer mask. And we're going to go look at the magnetic tool. Alright, so the magnetic tool gives you the ability to do very precise selections. So I'm going to zoom in. Let's say I only wanted this coffee cup. I no longer want J in the photo. I'm going to select this coffee cup. I'm going to start here. I'm going to click once and follow the edge of the coffee cup. And as you can see, square boxes are starting to pop up. Those are anchor points to allow me to edit the selection at any time. So I'm going to get to this corner. I'm going to click and drop an anchor point so that I can go back up. And that will allow for a more precise selection. And how this tool works is it's comparing the contrast of the cup to the contrast of what's behind the cup or the other parts of the image. Oops. Okay, so now I just went outside off the edge of the cup, and if I continue to go, it's dropping anchor points all over the place. So I'm going to go back to where my last good anchor point was, and I'm just going to hit backspace, and that gets rid of all those extra anchor points, and now I can continue down the line. And as you can see, once I get into that where there was a white space, it kind of strayed a little bit. I don't know if you saw that, oops, or not. So because there is the white on the Indian patch and the white cup, I'm going to come in here and manually drop my anchor points. And you can go fairly quickly as long as you stay on the edge of your cup. And as you can see, I did not drop an anchor point in that corner, so it's going to have a little bit of J shirt selected. So I'm going to come in here. So actually, I'm sorry, I dropped an anchor point. On the corners, okay, and the little circles came, so I'm completing my shape. Okay, so now that I'm looking at this, I see that Jay's hand is right there. If I create a layer mask, let me zoom out so you can see. If I create a layer mask now from that selection, that's kind of a funny cup. That's going to take a bit to edit and make a handle in there. So I'm going to Control Z and zoom back in. And to get that hand tool to grab and move my image, I'm just holding down my space bar and then click and dragging. Okay, so like with all the other tools, we have up here you can add, subtract, and intersect. I'm going to subtract oops, I want more of a straight line. I'm going to subtract the handles from the image. And as you can see, I didn't quite get all of the selection. So in this case, it might be better if I just use my rectangle tool. And I'm going to subtract from the image. So I'm going to come over here. Actually, it might, see, this is where sometimes you have to decide which tool is best for what situation. So maybe the polygonal would be better. Make sure I'm subtracting. I'm going to start here. Okay, that worked a little bit better. Let's zoom in. Oops, maybe a little too far. Move up, move down. I'm going to subtract a little bit more. Alright, that's about good. Without, or I can come in here and do my quick select. Get as precise as I can, so I'm going to make that as small as I can. I'm going to add to the selection. There we go. That's about as best we can do. Okay. So now let's zoom out, apply the mask so you can see what I did. Okay, and that just doesn't make any sense because that looks more like a glass than it does a coffee cup. So if I wanted just the cup with the coffee beans, I'd probably select a different cup because without the handle it just doesn't make any sense. Okay, and that's it for the lasso selection tools.